This is lesson 5 in our study of Proverbs 31. I'm Jeannie, and this lesson is a study of a woman I call Moxy. She's the ultimate example of a woman who is a force of character, determination, courage, and nerve. This proverb is filled with descriptives. Each week I've pulled out just a few, but this week there's one that comes to my mind. She is precious. In our last lesson, we looked at reliability. Reliable people are organized. They manage their time wisely. They know how to prioritize their day. And they know how much they can handle. They don't allow themselves to be too busy or scatterbrained, tardy. And you never find them frantic, looking for things they've misplaced. We actually rated our reliability index. Has your reliability index changed? Has it improved a little bit? Did you find the courage to say no to somebody so that you didn't risk becoming an overcommitter? Did you find a few examples where possibly your word was not deed? Things that you just didn't follow through with as you would liked? And did you take the time to reprioritize your commitments? It is essential. Finally, did you take some time to rest? Do it. Set aside 30 minutes a week to practice, and I promise once you understand resting, you won't want to live without it. And then what about time? Did you see it? Did you see when there are times that you are actually wasting it? Did you experience moments where you felt that you may be working with it instead of fighting against time? It's a powerful force that we need to understand and respect. This takes us to the beginning of lesson 5. Good, not evil. So sit back, relax. I hope you have something of your favorite beverage in your hand. I had a friend tell me that she just turns on her most favorite music and it's playing in the background. So settle in as we begin lesson 5. And the verse says this: She requites him with good, not evil, all the days of her life. If you're like me, the word requites is one of those Pride and Prejudice words, and it sounds really nice, but I have no idea what it means. I may not know, but Google does. I always go to the Google because he knows everything. So here is what Google said. Requites: make appropriate return for a favor, service, or wrongdoing. To return a favor to someone. To respond to love or affection. Return. Let's replace requites with respond. We also have to remove that word him because Moxy is not here to show us how to be a good wifey. She is here to show us how to be an amazing woman. So our verse now reads like this. She responds with good, not evil, all the days of her life. This does not say she does good, not evil. Instead, it says she responds with good, not evil. How do you respond? How do I respond? How do you react? How do I react? So many of our responses are learned behaviors, and most of them come from our childhood. And unfortunately, most of them come from wounds and hurts and being disappointed and possibly abused. How we respond when we are treated unfairly is a good indicator on the state of our responsiveness. It's easy to respond good, not evil, when good is happening to us. But when it's not, our response is quite telling. And we live in a culture that we are taught from childhood the only way to get justice is to sue. Immediately after something happens to us, if you don't think it, someone's going to tell you that it's time to sue. And sometimes it's right, but in many cases it's not. In many cases it requires us to remain victims until the whole process is done through, and whatever the outcome is, hopefully it's on our side, but there's no guarantees to that. I was introduced to a young woman a couple months ago who had a lot of illnesses. Illness had really plagued her life for a very long time, and now they were pretty consuming of her. Um, and then another young woman whose life was just in utter chaos. She had financial issues. She had a ton of really bad relationships, and it left her as a single mom. And a homeless lady who just happened to cross my path one day. And what I was so intrigued by was within a few minutes of having a conversation with them, they were listing off all of the people that had done them wrong, the lawyers that they were talking to, the lawsuits that were pending. The list just went on forever. And all I could think about was, you are allowing yourself to be such a victim. We have to get out of that mode. We have to stop thinking like victims. We have to move forward. There are some other learned behaviors that affect our reactions. And one of them is simply anger. Some of us have just a lot of built up anger inside, and when something happens, it triggers something within us, and we don't even know what that trigger point is right now, but it causes us to be angry. The other one is fear. A lot of us respond just out of fear of either being rejected, or a fear of getting yelled at, or a fear of we being the reason something didn't work out. Those two things can consume us. But we've got some tools, and we learned back in the earlier lessons. We need to ask ourselves why, and we need to keep asking ourselves why until we get to the very end, till we find the rabbit in the hole where it says, this is why this makes me angry. This is where this fear is coming from. And then we can deal with it. We can fix it and we can mend it. Another learned behavior is simple manipulation. We as women are great at manipulating. We excel. But that's not always good. Manipulation can be very dangerous when we're using it simply to get our own way instead of an honest way or a fair way. So be cautious when you're finding yourself being very manipulative. Something should just kind of trigger inside of you, and you need to ask yourself why. Why is it important for me to get my way in this situation? Another one, which sometimes appears to be very righteous, is we respond to simply keep peace. We don't want anyone to blow up at us. We don't want anyone to feel bad. We want to take care of everybody. So we're just going to respond by keeping peace. Although that is good, that also requires us to ask some questions as to why. A lot of times people who just want to keep peace can't confront anything. They can't fix anything because they are really responding out of fear. Disrespect is an interesting one. Many of us haven't learned to respect authority. We haven't learned to respect titles. And so when somebody gets into a role of authority and we don't necessarily respect them as a person, we don't understand that there is still a level of respect that we need to give them because of the title or because of the position that they hold. But that disrespect, that also comes from somewhere. And we can find out where that comes from. It doesn't have to be a secret anymore. We don't have to hit ourselves on the head and go, I don't know. We can actually track that down. I have a friend that hates playing this game with me. He actually allows me to ask him twice why things anger him or why he's afraid of it. And by the second or third time I ask the question, he just looks at me and says, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Now, we're never going to get to the bottom, and that's okay. That's his decision. But you have to continue to ask yourself those questions. Why? Why does it bother me? And again, your answer is going to come. You're going to feel it. You're going to know that you are at the end of your asking yourself why. When the response is about you and you suddenly have something that you can work with. You can have a situation that you can help that child fix. You can start mending those wounds to get them out of your life once and for all. A lot of our responses come from our motives. And we need to find out what our motives are, what's behind it. That also helps in our asking ourselves why question. Now let's stop for a minute because I realize that the last lesson on reliability and this lesson on our responses, this can be kind of overwhelming. This is only lesson 2 into Moxy's character. And already there seems to be an awful lot for us to look at. So I want to cut you a little slack. I want to give you a little secret because we can work really, really, really hard at becoming that perfect person, or we can do a little bit of trusting. So I want you to take a look at another verse in the Bible that will help you in this journey. And it's found in the New Testament. It's in the book of Galatians. And it says this: the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. What this verse says to me is that I can't create goodness. I can't create patience. I can't even create love. That is all a result of my relationship to God. So if I need goodness in my life and it's lacking, I can either go work really, really hard at it, or I can just get closer and closer to God. And He will plant those seeds of goodness within me that will suddenly blossom. And suddenly it will come out of a desire in my soul instead of a checklist of something that I need to do. Now there's a second verse in Galatians that I'd also like to look at. And it says this: do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man soweth, so shall he also reap. We've all heard the second part of that verse. What you sow, you shall reap. But it's the first part that grabs my attention. Don't be deceived. God is not mocked. There are some things that just can't be altered. There are some rules that God has put in place, and we are foolish to think we can change them or are not affected by them. For instance, the 24-hour rule. Our universe operates on a 24-hour cycle. I'd like to see you stop it. The other one is, when you put a seed in the ground, that seed will grow into whatever is that seed. If you put an apple seed in the ground, you're going to get an apple tree. Dandelions will never grow into rose bushes. And grass seed won't ever grow into daisies. Evil won't grow goodness. So when we are connected, oh look, there's that word, connected. When we're connected to God, this verse says the fruit of that relationship, the result of that relationship is going to be love and joy and peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. All of the attributes that we long to have. Now we can work really, really hard to love people, or to have joy, or to be peaceful, to show patience, to be kind, to respond with goodness, to be faithful, to strive to be gentle, and to battle with self-control. Or we can work at being connected to God and allow all of these things to be a result of our relationship with Him. She responds with good, not evil, all the days of her life. So if our responses are learned behaviors that we need to retrain ourselves on, Lesson 2 gives us some tools that we'll need to do that. But our true responses that come from our soul are a reflection of our state of our soul. The two verses in Galatians are connected. And if we merge them together, they say something like this: if you stay connected to me, I will plant seeds of love and joy and peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control that will blossom effortlessly from you. Our connectedness to God happens when we rest, when we are still, when we are listening, when we have quieted all the voices in our world and all of the chaos around us. It is then that we can respond with good and not evil all the days of our lives. I hope you take note of the difference between striving after these things, trying to create them within our own lives, working diligently to be good or kind or peaceful, or simply relying on God, making that connection stronger, making that relationship bolder. And He will plant those seeds within us that will grow automatically. Suddenly, these things will not just be actions that we're making happen, but they will blossom forth from our soul, from our inner depth. We will want nothing else than to respond with good and not evil all the days of our life. So the prayer that I leave with you this week is this: Gentle Shepherd, make us aware this week of how we respond. Show us the times when our responses are not good, and then help us to understand why. Teach us how to connect to you so that your fruits blossom in us all the days of our lives. Give us a desire and a passion to respond with goodness and not evil in every situation. Thank you for joining me on this 5th lesson. We're beginning to see Moxy's wardrobe and see what it is made of. She is reliable and trustworthy, dependable. She responds with goodness in every situation. This lesson has really spoken to me. It has touched me again, as each one of these lessons do. But the idea of resting in our relationship with our God, and if it requires me to work on that relationship, to get to know Him, to get to know God's character, and in return, He is going to plant in me seeds of love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, goodness, I can't help but say, yes, please God, teach me how to do that. So I trust that you desire, as I do, to be like Moxy. And this lesson speaks so deeply and touches us. We are all on our way to becoming women clothed in strength and dignity and can laugh without fear of the future. If you haven't already contacted me, oh, please take the time to do so this week. I would love to hear about you and your Moxy journey. We can connect through my blog at jeanniegb.com or email me directly at moxy@silverthread.com. I'm looking forward to our next lesson.